Monica came home late last night. It was almost 10 p.m. and I was still sitting on the couch with the TV playing to an empty room. I wasn't really watching, just letting the flicker of motion fill the silence. She was supposed to be home around 8. We hadn't talked much that day. She'd sent a quick message around lunch saying she was slammed at work, might be late, and not to wait up. I didn't think much of it. At least, not until my phone buzzed. The message came at 9:42 p.m. Her name popped up on the lock screen, but the message wasn't for me. I knew it instantly. You don't call your husband handsome devil with a winking face when you're texting him out of routine. You definitely don't say, can't stop thinking about earlier. That smile of yours should be a legal winking face when you've been married for nearly 5 years and haven't had a real date night in 2 months. I just stared at it. For a solid 2 minutes I didn't move. Didn't unlock my phone. Didn't breathe. My heart wasn't pounding, it was sinking. And then I heard her keys at the front door. She walked in like a scene from some other man's dream, bright yellow dress hugging her in all the ways I used to admire without hesitation. New earrings, probably gold. Hair curled. A perfume I didn't recognize. Light, floral, sharp. Not her usual scent. Not the stuff I gave her last Christmas. She smiled when she saw me. Not a fake smile, not overly warm either, just a calm, almost casual greeting. Hey babe. You're still up. Couldn't sleep, I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. She slipped out of her heels by the door, her fingers dancing quickly through her hair as she walked toward me. Work was insane. We had to put out 3 fires before I could even think about leaving. Yeah? I replied, not looking away from her. She nodded, tossed her purse on the side chair, then sat next to me, legs folded under her. Ugh, I'm so drained. But she leaned over and kissed my temple, seeing you helps. I wanted to ask right then. Wanted to hold up my phone like a courtroom exhibit and ask her to read the message out loud. But instead, I just looked at her and said, you texted me something weird. Her eyes darted toward my phone. I did. I turned it so she could see the message. She barely looked at it before laughing, nervous and loud. A little too loud. Oh my God. That wasn't for you. I mean, it was a joke. A stupid inside joke from work. She waved her hand like she was swatting away a fly. I was texting with Sarah and Jen. We were messing around about Mike, you know, my manager with the big white teeth. He smiles like a toothpaste commercial. I must have accidentally hit your name instead of Sarah's. I'm so sorry, Nat. That must have seemed weird. It did. She tilted her head, eyes wide with innocence. Come on, you don't actually think that meant anything, right? You've seen us text before, it's always dumb stuff like that. I nodded. Slowly. Didn't smile? She leaned in and kissed me again, this time on the lips. A soft, practiced kiss. Then she got up and walked toward the stairs, her voice trailing behind her. I'm going to take a quick shower. Want me to make tea when I come back down? No, I said. I'm good. She disappeared up the stairs, humming something faint, maybe a Dua Lipa song. The sound of water running followed a few seconds later. I sat there, the room heavy now. My fingers clenched around the phone like it might answer the questions racing through my head. But it didn't. It just sat there, glowing dimly with the same message I'd already read 5 times. I scrolled up through our text history. There were no playful messages from her today. No signs of an inside joke. Just a text about her being late. I clicked her contact name and scrolled down to the media section, nothing new. No screensh asterisk TS of memes or work jokes. No pictures. Just that one message unprompted, sitting like a trap she accidentally sprung on herself. She hadn't deleted it fast enough. And that perfume, she hadn't worn perfume to work in months. It used to be part of her routine, but lately? She barely bothered. Said it gave her headaches. Said the office wasn't worth the effort anymore. But tonight, she walked in smelling like the fragrance counter at a luxury boutique. I got up and walked to the kitchen. Opened the fridge. Closed it. My hands felt numb. Not from shock, just from the realization that something had shifted. Something I couldn't ignore anymore. Maybe it had been shifting for a while and I just didn't want to see it. The late nights at work. The gym membership she signed up for in January and suddenly started using religiously last month. The phone that always stayed face down. The ringer that was always off. The new clothes she didn't show me. The way she angled her body away from me when texting. None of it had been obvious. Nothing screamed affair. But now in hindsight it all lined up. I wasn't even angry. Not yet. I was just tired. Tired of pretending this was normal. When Monica came back downstairs in her robe, her hair damp, I didn't look up from the table. She poured herself a glass of water, stood there silently for a second, then walked over and rubbed my shoulder. Everything okay? I nodded. She hesitated, then kissed the top of my head again. You sure? Yeah, I said. Just tired. She smiled like everything was fine. Let's go to bed soon, okay? I missed you. I said nothing. Just looked at the wood grain on the table and nodded again. She didn't notice the way I didn't return the kiss. Or if she did, she chose not to mention it. That night, we went to bed like any other. She curled up next to me. Her breathing slowed. She fell asleep quickly, her body warm against mine. And I lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering how many other times I'd mistaken distance for exhaustion. Silence for peace. A kiss for love. Whatever shifted tonight, it wasn't temporary. I knew it then. Even if I couldn't prove it. Even if she had 1,000 more explanations lined up. Something in me had changed. I couldn't unsee it. And the message was still there, glowing like a flare in the dark, asking questions she didn't know I'd already started answering. The next morning, I sat in the garage with a wrench in my hand and a hurricane in my head. I wasn't fixing anything. Just pretending. There was an old toolbox Monica had given me 3 Christmases ago, back when we still did thoughtful gifts. I opened it and stared inside like it held answers. It didn't. Just rusted sockets and dusty screwdrivers. Monica had already left for work. She kissed me on the cheek before leaving, same as always. Said she had an early meeting, same as always. But now every always felt suspicious. As the garage door creaked open and sunlight spilled across the floor, I felt like I was watching my own life from the outside. Detached. Disoriented. And behind everything, behind the fog, was that message. Still on my phone. Still unread by her. Still sent to the wrong person. A workplace joke, she said. Right? But if that was just a joke, why did my chest tighten every time I replayed her words? Why did I feel like a fool sitting here in the one place that used to ground me? I picked up a rag, wiped the grease off my palms that wasn't there, and tried to recall when things started feeling off. It wasn't just last night. It had been a slow build. The kind of erosion you don't notice until the foundation starts to crack. And once the cracks appear, you can't unsee them. She'd been coming home late more often. First it was once a week. Then twice. Then it became normal. At first, she blamed meetings. Then team dinners. Then catching up on work at the gym cafe. I remember laughing the first time she said that because who actually works at a gym cafe? She started hitting the gym 5 times a week back in April. At first, I was happy. I thought maybe she was taking care of herself again, trying to feel better. Maybe it would help us reconnect. I even offered to go with her once. She laughed, sweet, a little dismissive, and said, "Babe, I need this for me, not for us." I didn't push. And her phone, God, her phone had turned into a little black vault. Always on silent. Always face down. Notifications suddenly disappeared. Messages accidentally deleted. Once, when she was in the shower, it lit up with just landed face-blowing kiss from a number not in her contacts. I asked her about it. She said it was her coworker Laura joking after a trip. Laura always sends dumb stuff like that, she'd said with a wave of her hand. She thinks it's hilarious. I believed her. Or maybe I wanted to. Then there were the weekend trips. She started visiting her sister in Vermont every other month. She's going through a lot, Monica explained. I want to be there for her. I admired that. Thought maybe it was good for her to reconnect with family. But she stopped FaceTiming during those visits. Said the signal was bad. She'd text instead, short messages, all good. Long day. Love you. I stopped asking for selfies. Stopped asking for anything, really. Because asking felt like accusing. And accusing meant you had to deal with the fallout. There were other things too, tiny details that meant nothing alone but screamed together. The scent of cologne on her scarf that wasn't mine. A wine bottle in the trash I don't remember opening. Shoes near the door, light, muddy footprints that I once chalked up to her coworker dropping something off. She'd brushed it off like I was being weird. Nat, are you seriously noticing footprints now? I hadn't brought it up again. But I remembered them. I remembered everything now. And her mood swings, the sudden bursts of affection followed by days of silence. One week she'd come home with my favorite Thai takeout curled up in my lap like we were teenagers. The next, she'd barely look at me, locking herself in the bedroom with the door just barely closed. I didn't know how to ask the questions in my head. I wasn't even sure how to phrase them without sounding paranoid. Have you been lying to me? Do you love someone else? Are you still mine? So instead, I sat in the garage, replaying scenes like a detective sifting through his own memories for clues he missed the first time around. Her smiles, were they too quick? Her phone calls, were they too private? The way she clung to her independence, was it pride, or was it guilt? I used to know Monica. Every quirk, every gesture. I could read her moods like the weather. But now she felt like a stranger with a familiar face. A few months ago, we were watching TV and she fell asleep on my shoulder. I remember brushing her hair from her eyes and thinking, this is home. But last week, I reached for her hand on the couch and she moved it without even noticing. I told myself it was nothing. That people drift? That maybe we needed a vacation or therapy or just more sleep. But the truth was quieter than that. The truth didn't scream. It whispered. And right now, it was whispering louder than ever. I grabbed my phone, opened our shared photo album, and scrolled back through the last few months. Vacations. Birthdays. Smiles. But her eyes, they weren't the same. She always smiled with her whole face. Now it was just lips. Half of the pictures she'd taken didn't include me. The captions read like captions meant for someone else. Missing this view, re heart. Wish you were here. Who was you? Not me. And now I realized how many of those photos were taken during work trips. The timing lined up too neatly. The outfits in those pictures matched the ones I'd seen hanging up after laundry day unworn on the nights she claimed she stayed in. I felt like an idiot. Or worse, like a bystander in my own relationship. The garage smelled like sawdust and old regrets. I sat there for hours, the wrench still in my hand, while outside the sun moved across the sky like nothing was wrong. Eventually, I went inside, poured myself a coffee, and stared out the window. She texted around lunch. Monica, crazy day. Can't wait to see you tonight, re heart. I stared at it. No mention of the message. No follow-up about last night. Like none of it happened. I typed out, did you delete that message from last night? But I didn't send it. I deleted it and locked my phone. Instead, I said nothing. Let her think I bought the lie. Let her feel safe in the mask she was wearing. Because I needed to be sure. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. Because whatever this was, it wasn't just about a text anymore. It was a pattern. A map. And I was finally starting to read it. By the following week, the doubts had hardened into something colder. Something sharper. They weren't shadows anymore. They were outlines. I wasn't chasing ghosts, I was following patterns. And that meant one thing. I had to look where I hadn't dared to before. It started with a quiet afternoon. Monica said she was visiting her sister for the weekend last minute. Claimed her niece had a dance recital and she just couldn't miss it. She packed light. A small suitcase, no makeup bag, but 3 pairs of heels. She left early Saturday morning, barely kissing me goodbye, promising to call later. She didn't. I waited all day. No texts. No photos of her niece. Not even a made it safe message. By Sunday, I was done waiting. The front door camera system had been sitting and used for months, installed back when there were a few car break-ins in the neighborhood. Monica thought it was paranoid. So we let it collect dust. But I'd never disconnected it. That afternoon, I logged in. The interface was clunky, the playback slower than I remembered, but it worked. I scrolled back to last Tuesday, the night she came home late claiming to have been out with clients. I found the file. It started around 6:10 p.m. Monica stepping out the door in a sleek black coat, hair done, heels clicking. She turned to check her reflection in the glass. Adjusted her lipstick. Smiled. Not the tired smile she gave me when she got home. This one was electric. She left. The video skipped forward. At 10:53 p.m., the same timestamp as the text she accidentally sent, she came back. But she wasn't alone. A man followed her up the steps. Broad shoulders. Blue blazer. No face visible at first, he was turned toward her, laughing. She said something and he leaned in. He kissed her. Not on the cheek. Not polite. Slow. Familiar. I paused it. Rewound. Played it again. She put her hand on his chest as he kissed her. Didn't push him away. They stood there like that for 3, maybe 4 seconds, then she unlocked the door and let him inside. My throat tightened. I watched the next hour like I was watching someone else's life. At 11:47 p.m., the door opened again. The man walked out first. He paused, said something over his shoulder. She followed. They both left. 35 minutes later, Monica returned alone. No sign of guilt. No frantic pacing. Just the calm of someone who thought they'd covered their tracks. Except she hadn't. I watched it twice. Then again. Looking for some alternative explanation. A joke. A cousin. Some twisted misunderstanding. But there wasn't one. He kissed her. She let him. They went inside. Together. And they left. Together. She came back. Alone. That footage didn't just confirm my worst fear. It ended the guessing game. It didn't matter what story she would try to tell next. This wasn't a late night at work. This wasn't a colleague dropping something off. It was betrayal. Right there on camera. As real as the morning sun. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there. staring at the screen. My pulse was steady, but my hands wouldn't stop twitching. My jaw ached from clenching so hard. Part of me wanted to call her right then. Send her the footage. Ask her how long she'd been lying. Demand names. Reasons. A timeline. But a different voice, quieter but steadier, told me not to. Not yet. I made coffee. Sat in the kitchen. Stared at the ceramic mug as if it could hold me together. I realized I didn't even want an apology. I just wanted the truth. Or whatever was left of it. But I knew now she wouldn't volunteer it. She wasn't coming clean. She was only coming home. At 6:15 p.m. that night, Monica texted. Monica, recital went long. I'll probably just crash here. Love you. Crash at her sister's, she said. Except her sister had posted pictures from the dance recital. I saw them on Facebook. Monica wasn't in a single one. Her sister tagged 5 people. Her husband. Her kids. Even the dance teacher. No Monica. I scrolled through every photo. Checked the timestamps. Even watched a video of the girls on stage. In the background, you could see the front row. No Monica. No seat left open beside her sister. I set my phone down. My mind was already racing ahead. Not to confrontation, but to strategy. This wasn't a story anymore. It was evidence. Every lie she'd told in the past month suddenly rearranged itself into a timeline. One that ended here, with a kiss, a man, and a door she thought no one was watching. I spent the rest of the evening going back through the footage from earlier dates. I combed through clips, looking for repeats, outfits, timestamps, cars. And there it was again, the same man in the blazer 3 weeks ago. Late evening. Monica stepped out and got into his car. He didn't come to the door that time. She ran to him like they were escaping something. I didn't know who he was. Not yet. But I would find out. Because this wasn't about heartbreak anymore. This was about what she was planning to do next. And whatever it was, I needed to be one step ahead. I didn't confront her. Not right away. The footage played in my head like a movie no one else knew I'd seen. Her voice, her laugh, even her casual texts all felt like props now, set pieces designed to keep the illusion alive. But the illusion had already died the moment she let him inside our house. I didn't want to scream. I didn't want to beg. I didn't even want an explanation. What I wanted now was the full picture. So I stayed quiet. And I watched. Monica came back Monday morning. Woke me with a kiss and a whisper about how late things had run at her sister's. I watched her brush her teeth, tying her robe tighter like it was armor. She made coffee, asked about my weekend, scrolled through Instagram like she hadn't just kissed someone else 4 nights ago on our front porch. I played along. And then I started documenting everything. I contacted Ethan, a close friend of mine and a quiet powerhouse of an attorney. We'd known each other since college. I didn't say much at first, just asked for advice about hypothetical separation planning. Ethan knew me well enough not to press. By the end of that week, he gave me a checklist, documentation, financials, parenting patterns. He said, if this gets ugly, you want more than feelings. You need facts. So I got to work. First, I backed up the security footage. Uploaded it to a private drive. Dated it. Cross-referenced it with her text that night. Then I dug deeper. I started checking our bank accounts more closely. She'd been quiet about money lately, offered to take care of groceries more often, insisted on using her card for gas. I figured she was being generous. She wasn't. Over the past 3 months, she had slowly rerouted money from our joint checking account into a new, undisclosed account. Small amounts. Always under the radar, $300 here, $150 there. Listed as things like wellness plan or a grocery overflow. But when I traced the transactions, it became clear they weren't going to any store I recognized. Most of them were deposits, transfers to an online bank I didn't know she used. I confronted the evidence, not her. Then came the email. It was hidden in her drafts folder. She'd left her laptop open one night in the kitchen while she went upstairs to shower. I wasn't snooping, not really, but something made me open her mail client. Maybe it was the silence. Maybe it was instinct. There it was, a draft email to a family law firm. Subject line, preparing for custody filing. My heart didn't pound. It froze. The email was dated 2 weeks ago. It wasn't long, but it was enough. She wrote, my husband has grown distant and inattentive. I am the primary caregiver to our son, and I'm increasingly concerned about my husband's mental health and capacity to co-parent. He's emotionally disengaged and doesn't contribute consistently to household duties. I would like to explore options for sole custody and need guidance on documentation. Confidentiality is a must. I stared at the screen, numb, disengaged. I'd been the one planning game nights, making breakfast, reading bedtime stories while she scrolled through her phone. I was the one who picked up our son from soccer, helped him build that ridiculous Lego spaceship she didn't even notice. This wasn't just betrayal. This was strategy. She wasn't planning an affair. She was planning a removal of me from our life, from our son's life. I backed up the email, took *TS, and emailed them to myself. Then I started recording every morning interaction, every time she ignored our son's requests, every time I handled meals, school drop-offs, doctor's appointments. She didn't even notice. She had become increasingly absent at home, disengaged from parenting. Our son had started asking where she was when she missed bedtime again. Why is mommy always too busy now? I didn't answer. I just hugged him harder. Monica, meanwhile, had and painting me as passive. Subtle comments at brunch with friends. Nathan's just been tired lately. I've been doing so much on my own. She said it with a laugh, but I saw the looks exchanged at the table. She was building a case. Not just legally but socially. She was rewriting our story in real time. And then came the manipulation. One night, after a quiet dinner, she told me she was worried about me. "You're not yourself," she said gently, brushing her hand over mine. "You're always tense. You seem checked out." I stared at her. Checked out. "You're so distant with our son lately," she added. "He's sensitive to these things." That nearly broke me, because it wasn't just a lie, it was projection. She was doing the thing and pinning it on me. Rehearsed. Smooth. Designed to make me question my own reality. I nodded, pretending to listen. But inside I was taking notes. The next morning, I called Ethan again and asked him to initiate custody contingency paperwork. Quietly, he directed me to a therapist for documentation of parenting fitness, both mine and hers. We scheduled a home assessment. I made sure Monica would be at the gym during the visit. The therapist saw everything. The empty wine glasses, the ignored laundry, the way our son clung to me and barely looked for her. I didn't coach him. I didn't have to, because he knew, deep down, what I had just begged N to accept. Monica had already left us. Emotionally, strategically. She was still here in body but not in heart. Not in commitment. And certainly not in motherhood. One night, as I was cleaning the dining table, I found a small sticky note. Scribbled in her handwriting was a reminder. "Call Attorney Ree. Case timeline." She didn't even bother hiding it. That's when I knew she thought I was blind. She thought I was soft, passive, unaware. And maybe I had been. But not anymore. I was no longer trying to save a marriage. I was protecting my son. Because this wasn't about two people falling out of love. It was about one of them deciding the other was expendable. And now she was going to find out just how wrong she was. There's a moment in every chess game when your opponent thinks they've won. They smile. They lean back. They feel in control. But what they don't realize is you've been planning the counter from the beginning. Not to win with flair, but to survive with certainty. That's where I was now. Monica was still moving like nothing had changed. Still sending good morning texts when she stayed overnight at her sister's. Still asking if I'd remembered to sign our son's permission slip. Still casually planning the weekend like we were a team. But we weren't. We hadn't been for a long time. While she lived in her illusion of control, I was building a case of quiet precision. I compiled every piece of evidence into a locked digital folder. The security footage. *TS of her transfers from our joint account. Her unsent email to the divorce lawyer. The sticky note with the attorney's name. Photos of wine bottles that weren't mine. Audio recordings of her manipulative comments. Casual digs meant to paint me as disengaged. Subtle but cumulative. I installed a second interior camera in the kitchen under the guise of upgrading the smoke detector. She didn't even ask about it. Probably thought I was overcompensating. Probably didn't care. I recorded her negligence toward our son. Not once, but repeatedly. The missed bedtime stories. The forgotten lunches. The The night she came home so late he had cried himself to sleep, asking, "Did Mommy forget me again?" That was the night I stopped feeling sorry for her. This wasn't about bitterness anymore. This was about custody. I took our son and spent more weekends at my sister's place in Brookdale, about 30 minutes out. She had a big yard, 2 dogs, and a warm kitchen that smelled like cinnamon and childhood. My sister had always been the steady one in our family. When I told her everything, she didn't flinch, just asked, "What do you need me to do?" She offered testimony, place to stay, help with logistics. We became a new version of family overnight. I started sleeping better there. So did my son. While Monica continued working late, I began meeting with a child psychologist. Not for me, though God knows I needed one, but for an independent evaluation of our son's emotional well-being. Ethan said this would help establish baseline care patterns. It worked better than expected. The psychologist noted our strong bond, the emotional regulation my son displayed in my presence, and the distance he showed when discussing Monica. I didn't prompt him. He just said, "Mom's always tired now. She doesn't like to read with me." That went in the file. I filed for temporary custody through Ethan, citing emotional negligence, manipulative conduct, and financial misconduct. I submitted all the materials. I marked every date. I made sure nothing was missing. All of this done in silence. Monica never saw it coming. She kept texting from work, sending memes, forwarding me sales on new shoes for our son like she was still the primary parent. I responded with the same neutrality you give a colleague you barely tolerate. When the court date was set, Ethan told me, "We're not just ahead, we're bulletproof." On a Thursday afternoon, the paperwork was delivered to our home. Monica received it while I was at work. I got the text at 3:17 p.m. "Monica, what the hell is this, Nathan?" No emoji. No babe. Just panic. I didn't reply. By the time I got home, she was pacing the kitchen like a storm trapped indoors. The envelope was still on the table, its seal half-torn. She looked at me like she didn't recognize me. "You filed for custody?" she said, voice tight. "You filed without telling me?" I met her eyes. Calm. Flat. "You were planning to take him from me?" I said. "I just beat you to it." She blinked. Swallowed. "That's not true. You're twisting things." "Am I?" I set my phone down and pulled up the draft email. "This says otherwise." Her face went pale. "You weren't supposed to see that." I nodded. "I know." She reached for a chair but didn't sit. "I wasn't going to send it. I was just trying to figure out options. Options for removing me from my son's life." "Nathan." I read everything. I saw the bank transfers, the emails, the footage. She went still. "What footage?" There it was. The first real crack in her voice. "You should be more careful with your entrances," I said. "The camera by the door saw everything. Tuesday night. You and him." She dropped into the chair then, like gravity had just discovered her. I didn't move. "I made a mistake," she said finally, voice shaking. "I wasn't going to hurt you." "But you were," I replied. "Not just me. Him." Tears filled her eyes. "I didn't care. You lied. You planned. You made me look like the one who checked out. All while you were building a secret exit plan. You thought I wouldn't notice." "I didn't think you cared," she said, more bitter than broken. That stung. But only for a second. I looked at her and said, "That's your biggest mistake." The next day, I picked up our son from school and took him to Brookdale. I didn't tell Monica until after we were already there. She called twice. I didn't answer. Ethan handled the court notifications. Temporary custody granted pending hearing. Monica's access was limited, weekends only, supervised. She could fight it. She probably would. But the evidence was solid. I brought in character witnesses, family, friends, our son's teachers. The child psychologist submitted a full evaluation. I even got a sworn statement from my sister detailing Monica's absences. For the first time in months, I wasn't reacting. I was controlling the board. At night, I'd sit on the porch with my son curled beside me, his head on my shoulder as we watched the sky change colors. The air was different out here. So was the silence. It wasn't lonely. It was peaceful. Sometimes he'd ask when we were going back home. And I'd say soon. But not yet. Because I wasn't just protecting our future anymore. I was reclaiming it. The courtroom smelled like old paper and cheap carpet. There's something deeply sterile about legal spaces, like they're designed to drain the heat out of human drama. Monica sat across from me, dressed sharply, professionally. She looked smaller than usual. Pale. Her confidence, so carefully curated in emails and text threads, didn't survive the silence between depositions. Her attorney began with poise. They painted Monica as a loving mother, concerned about her child's emotional well-being, worried about an emotionally withdrawn husband who had, quote, lost himself. I watched her watch me. There was something hollow in her eyes. Like even she didn't believe the story anymore. Then Ethan stood. Piece by piece, he presented the facts. Calm, factual, devastating. The footage. The bank statements. The recorded conversations. Then came the psychological evaluation, an independent expert's report confirming emotional neglect toward our son. Descriptions of inconsistency. Absence. Deflection. Manipulative tendencies that inhibited healthy attachment. Monica's attorney tried to poke holes, but every response tangled into contradiction. Her timeline didn't match her email. Her bank transactions didn't match her testimony. Her emotional pleas fell flat under the weight of video evidence. When Ethan played the front door footage, Monica dropped her gaze. The kiss. The entrance. The exit. And finally, her return. Alone. The courtroom was silent. She didn't deny it. Didn't object. Didn't offer context. By the end, the judge didn't need convincing. He leaned forward, clasped his hands, and said, "There's a consistent pattern here, Mrs. Albright, that deeply concerns this court." Temporary full custody was granted to me. Supervised visitation for Monica. Weekly. Under review. A psychiatric evaluation was ordered. She didn't speak as the gavel came down. There were no outbursts. No final, desperate attempt to salvage the narrative. Just silence. For once, the truth was louder than her. 3 months later, we lived in a modest house near a lake, just outside Brookdale. It wasn't big, but it was clean, warm, and quiet in the best ways. Mornings were slow. Peaceful. Our son would sit at the kitchen table, chewing on toast while I packed his school bag. We talked about space, Legos, and whether ducks have teeth. He laughed more now. So did I. There was no yelling, no phone buzzing at midnight, no walking on eggshells to preserve the illusion of love. Just stillness. Routine. Safety. On weekends, we built a wooden raft together, his idea. He sketched it on napkins like a tiny engineer. We never expected it to float, but that wasn't the point. It was ours. Something built without lies. Monica sent letters. 2 at first, then more. Long, handwritten apologies. Offers to start fresh. Promises of change. She called a few times too, but I didn't answer. I had nothing left to say. There was no victory in this. No moment of triumph. Just a quiet reclamation of the life we'd once shared, stripped of pretense, redefined by boundaries. I wasn't angry anymore. I was tired. But free. And freedom didn't roar like I thought it would. It whispered. It smelled like sawdust and lake water. It looked like my son curled beside me, his breath soft and even as we watched the sunset from the edge of the dock we'd built together. Monica would always be part of our story. But only as a chapter. The rest would be written here in the stillness.